Boom. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the $100,000 tax mistakes that e-commerce sellers don't know they're making. Whew. If you want to save some money, this episode's for you. Let's get this one started. Here we go.
Shut up and sit down.
Look, a business can give you everything you want in life. Prestige, wealth, freedom. It can also take everything away from you. This show is for those who are willing to take that risk. These are the real life stories of entrepreneurs. But before we start, I have one small favor to ask. Please leave a comment. It can be advice, critiques, tips, feedback, or share this with someone because your engagement is the most valuable and most powerful form of social currency. So thank you, and welcome to another episode of Business Bros. Alrighty, business bros. He's helped over 5,000 e-commerce sellers avoid six-figure tax disasters, help them scale into multi-state markets, and prep their business for eight-figure exits, all while earning the #1 spot in the U.S. on Trustpilot. So please welcome the tax lane compliance king, Reuben James Mattinson. All right, Reuben, welcome to the program, my friend.
Great to be here, man. Great to be called a king as well. Feels very fitting as someone from Great Britain who still has a king to be given that title. I don't know, did it feel wrong? All right, or both? I don't know.
I don't know. Take it, man. It's a compliment. And my whole goal is ultimately to make people feel very comfortable when they come on and have some fun smiling, especially when you're talking about a subject like taxes. It's not always the most exciting topic, right?
That's it, man. Yeah, if we can make it even a little bit interesting today, we'll have done our job.
Well, let's start off with a little bit of background. You got a #1 spot in US, but you're from Britain. How does that work, man? How'd you get started into the tax game?
Yeah, the question we always get asked. I think I was just crazy enough myself as an entrepreneur to sell into the US. This was several years ago, and I started my own e-commerce business. And I just started to hit hurdle after hurdle and wall after wall of sales tax compliance, trying to sell to all of the states. You know, spoke to multiple different law firms and accountancy firms. They were giving mixed advice, charging me a huge amount of money. And I just figured actually there's a really good niche here to be helping people and to be starting a business. So that's actually where it came from. And I just happened to be in Great Britain, but obviously just have the right people around me, the right team around me, and the right expertise in place to serve the US public super well, as you mentioned, to get that #1 rating space on Trustpilot in the whole of the United States.
Isn't it crazy? We usually end up starting businesses mainly because we have a need, and we find that we're not the only ones who have that need. So I'm assuming in the e-commerce space, there's a lot of people making that $100,000 mistake, the one we kind of hinted to at the very beginning. What is that very costly mistake, and how can they avoid it?
So many of those mistakes can lead to that volume of money to be owed. I would say the first and foremost, if you're reselling products online, you want to be what's called tax exempt. So if you are reselling products, you shouldn't have to be paying sales tax when you buy a product to resell it, whether you're buying it at a retail level or a wholesale level. So the first and foremost, is set up your business so you're not paying sales tax, because that's going to save you a huge amount of money, depending on the volume that you sell. That's #1. Let me know if you want me to go into the many other numbers.
No.
I have many other ways that people can.
I don't think people quite know that there is a tax exempt status, because as an employee here in the States, when they hear tax exempt, it's usually on a W-4, and they hit tax exempt because they don't want to have any federal income tax withheld on their paycheck. Maybe they have credits that suffice for the year. Maybe they don't have any taxable income for the year, whatever the reason. That's usually what they think of when they think tax exempt. So when they roll over to becoming an entrepreneur and they see tax exempt, they don't quite understand that. And plus, maybe you can go a little bit more. It's more complicated than that, because each state, like you kind of mentioned earlier, it gets crazy, not in just states, but per city, per municipality. It can get crazy.
It is mayhem, absolute mayhem. But that's why we have a job, why I have a business. Thankfully, AI hasn't quite replaced that yet, and we'll struggle to with the very ever-changing landscape of what it is. But yeah, I mean, initially, the difficulty to start with tax exemption is when you are working out where your products are being shipped to when you buy them. So whether you're shipping them to a warehouse or to a fulfillment center or direct to the consumer, let's say, if you've got some type of drop shipping model, you are going to be liable on actually the destination of your product. So you need to look at what the regulations are into that state in which your product is first being shipped into. So that's where your first layer of kind of compliance has to come into to protect yourself from having to pay sales tax.
Mhm.
And then if you then move it from the warehouse or the fulfillment center to then sell to the end client, again, you've got to be looking at the end point in which the product is going to. So those are the first hurdles to jump over.
It's and again, those are just the first couple hurdles. So taxes in the U.S., for those who don't know, are volumes and volumes of pages long for all the different tax codes. And there are people who are maybe preparing to sell their company. Maybe there are people who are preparing to be acquired in some way. Um, what are buyers looking for, and why is tax compliance in that case when you're getting ready to sell or to be acquired? Why is it so important?
Well, yeah, it massively either increases or reduces the appeal of your company. It often is the make or break when you get a serious audit done on a business, which will always be done on any business which is worth selling. You're going to be looked into, and they're going to see, well, have they been tax compliant? Are they going to have any backlog which is owed? Is there going to be anything that's going to come back and bite us as a business from either the consumer or from the retailer or the wholesaler or the states themselves? So we have many cases where we have kind of gone over and checked businesses, and we've found a plethora of errors, which has basically stalled the sale. So we've had to jump in, fix everything at a cost, which is probably fairly reasonable compared to some firms, but a cost which they wouldn't have had to have paid if they'd been compliant in the first place. And then they can sell it. So we often see that kind of wall that gets hit if they haven't been compliant, or they have that stuff that can come back and
So
bite.
So what should they do at the beginning when they're first getting started? And it's funny because you don't know what you don't know, especially at the beginning of your entrepreneurial career. But what can an e-commerce company or somebody getting started selling overseas like that, what can they do to set themselves up at the beginning to avoid those costs in the back end?
Yeah, I mean, besides the generic response of educate yourself, I mean, we have a ton of blogs on our website, which is free to look at and look over, which are very helpful. But besides that, it's having a company like us who has a software which can plug into whatever platform you're selling on, or you can have a free consultation and an audit just to get a picture of what your target audience is, where you're going to be selling into. And I think an idea is helpful of how quickly you're going to start to hit thresholds and need to be registered to states. So if you have some idea in your head, you can make some type of plan of, well, what's the cost going to be to scale this? Because the issue is often with e-commerce businesses, particularly when they're a successful one, with the way e-com works, you can have overnight success, and people often have these explosions of success because something goes viral on their social media platform, and then suddenly they've got 10,000 people coming to the website, and then suddenly they've made a load of sales and they weren't prepared for it, and now they're like,
Mhm.
oh, was I supposed to collect sales tax? Have I forgotten to collect sales tax now, but made those sales, and now I'm going to have to pay that sales tax out of my own profit? Yes, they do. So it's just about getting that head start. And it can be tricky because some people who get this wild success, which happens a lot, they don't necessarily think they're going to until their numbers get called, and they're like, oh, now I have this great successful business, so I've made loads of sales. I was almost half not expecting it. So I think just, yeah, expect maybe the best scenario of what could happen and be ready for it.
Now, you said earlier when you were in the e-commerce space trying to figure this stuff out, you went to CPAs, you went to tax firms, and you were getting different bits of advice. How's your approach different to those traditional CPAs or those traditional tax firms when it comes to that e-commerce game?
Yeah, so the big difference really is you don't need to be a CPA to do sales tax work, which is a common misconception. So CPAs, they can do sales tax work, but their specialism and really what you have to be a CPA for is high level income tax filing or auditing of businesses, like high level income auditing. So when it comes to sales tax, the CPAs I don't want to sound cocky or arrogant or whatever, but the CPAs often aren't the experts in the sales tax field because it's like below their pay grade, but yet they still can be paid to do it. So if you pay a CPA to do your sales tax work, typically you're overpaying for an underqualified person, but you pay for it because you think, oh, CPA, that's guaranteed to be the best person to do it and the best expert and the safest option. So the reason why we can offer prices which are so much more competitive and actually expertise at a much higher level is because we're in a very specific niche which we're very high level experts at, and we're not having to use CPAs to do it. For the income tax filing that a company does, of course, we have accountants who do that, but sales tax is a very different game and something which people don't really think about in that way.
Yeah, it's not something a CPA really, really wants to do either. You're right. They're more focused on gap principles and making sure that everything is structured as far as all your general ledger, all that information. But sales tax, on the other hand, that's what the admin is for. That's not something that they specialize in. You're 100% correct. I know a lot of CPAs. My background's in accounting, so there's a lot of CPAs, and yeah, they don't like to do that work. That always gets kind of subbed out. So if you have somebody who's an expert in that space, kind of like Reuben and his team here, right? It makes a lot more sense to work with somebody who specializes it and who has that experience in that e-commerce, and make it a difference, a real impact to your bottom line. Can you walk us through like a real example where your system saved businesses from maybe a potential audit or penalty?
I mean, it's hard to know ultimately when you've been saved from an audit because audits can get flagged up because of the errors that you've done, and that gets tracked through many different ways through marketplace facilitators like Amazon, Walmart, wherever, sharing the data with states which are allowed to get, or payment processors like Stripe sharing the data with states which states are allowed to pull, or delivery fulfillment centers which again states are allowed to request the information from. So if we've been doing it right and it's not flagging up any anomaly, then actually you're less likely to have some kind of inquiry or audit. But there are times obviously people have been audited, but they've been compliant and there's been no fees and nothing, no issues have happened, and that is what generally happens. There's been scenarios where, I mean, what's more common that you see is people have used a different provider, and it's not been done right, and then there's been big kind of holds on their bank account from a tax account that they've had open. If things get frozen or there's liens that put in place, and then we have to go in and fix that, sort that, and save a $20,000 hold, $100,000 hold, whatever that's happening. And that's the kind of more scary, more common things that you see brought to us. If people have come to us, then we hopefully shouldn't see those things happening, if you see what I mean. So that's kind of what you expect.
Yeah, some of these payment processors, they will hold your money and they will hold it for quite a period of time. I remember the first time I ever experienced that, I was ready to pay some bills and I knew I had made a sale and I'm like, where's my money?
Yeah.
It's not hitting my bank account.
Where's my money at?
Freaked out situation right there. And you gotta go through a process. So yeah, they don't mess around. You got to get yourself set up definitely the right way. What kind of operational changes do sellers need to make if they want to be like exit ready? If they want to be in a position where, maybe they didn't know upfront, like you were saying, that they were going to make those great sales, and now they're like, okay, I'm doing well. I don't know if I really want to do this. Maybe I'm thinking about selling. Maybe I'm thinking about exiting this company. What kind of changes do I need to make?
I would say automate as much as you possibly can so that it is much more of an appealing business to sell, because a more automated passive business is a more appealing business to buy. Because if you're going to have to buy a business where you're going to have to oversee a load of people running things, or things can go wrong as soon as you buy it because it's not smooth and automated. And that's the same for tax. If someone goes to look at your business and they think, well, the whole sales tax setup is automated, they have a software already from RGM, for example, that's plugged in, it's pulling the data, the staff are overseeing it, they're filing it, I don't need to sweat about that at all. That is massively appealing. And even the times when we've had a client who has sold their business on, often, as I'm saying, they'll just stay and carry on using us for that reason. Like I can't actually think of a time when one of our clients has sold their business or people haven't stayed with us. But I can think of times where people have come to sell a business and come to us and thought, I've got nothing in place, quickly, can you help me? Can you sort all of this? Can you make me look appealing so someone will buy our business? So that's typically what you see.
And what would be a turnaround time if I'm an e-commerce business owner and I notice that I'm growing and I'm thinking I'm going to exit this thing? I don't know if I'm very compliant. I don't know if I'm in a situation where I can actually have my sales tax automated or it's going crazy on me. Like if I'm calling, like freaking out for help, what's that process like and what's that time frame like?
I mean, it's very variable depending on the size of the business and the number of state accounts they have open, volume of sales, where they're selling. So hard to give a definite answer, but I would say from all of the kind of feedback we've had from clients and from our kind of ratings and reviews, we work very quickly and faster than any other company that I know of because we don't outsource our work as well. Whereas if you go to bigger, larger tax firms or law firms, particularly in the sales tax side of things, as we're saying, because they don't need CPAs or necessarily accountants to do it, they can outsource it, but to people who aren't going to give you that quality of care. And actually, what produces speed is someone answering you quickly because questions will come up all the time and being able to work and get on a call, which is what we do. So actually, first and foremost, I think we'd be able to give you a peace of mind within the first call you have with us, which is probably very important. And
Yes.
then from there, within a few weeks, we'll have put out the majority of fires and got things in place, sometimes less than that. So that's what we aim to do as a company.
The some of these platforms where people sell stuff have built-in systems that are collecting that sales tax. What platforms do you know of that have it built in that are great to work with? Which e-commerce platforms should we be kind of worried or skeptical about when creating our business platform because we might run into some of these sales tax issues?
Yeah, I guess I can't speak with like complete authority on all the ones that don't work because there's so many of them. But out there that there'll be loads that don't work very well. But I can speak on the ones that I know that do, and maybe highlight a few things to be aware of. I mean, if you're going to think from just a typical standpoint, the big marketplace facilitators are Amazon and eBay and Walmart and Etsy. But because they're a marketplace facilitator, the states actually say, hey, look, you're actually selling the product,
Mm.
not just the person and their company. So you should be collecting the sales tax and paying it back. So if you sell on those platforms, you don't actually have to collect any sales tax or pay it back because they do it for you. So that's probably the gold standard of selling on platforms to simplify it. It doesn't mean it makes you completely sales tax compliant, though, because we have worked with every single state directly, spoken to them, and some states, a handful, still, but like around 10, still say, even if you sell on a marketplace facilitator, we want you to be registered to us, and we still want you to do a gross filing and let us know the sales that you're making to our citizens in our state. And just do a deduction, so you're not paying us any sales tax, but you still got to let us know so that it matches with what the marketplace facilitators are doing and saying. So to be fully compliant, you've still got to register, which again is a first big point that people miss. Again, if you come to sell a business and someone like a professional auditor picked that up and said you were never compliant the whole time you were selling, and someone who's really particular could flag that up. You've then got the next level below that, which is Shopify, in my eyes, who are really good at having a software on the back end, which you can put settings in quite simply so it collects the sales tax for you when you make a sale in the right percentages, in the right way. But they will not pay the sales tax back for you, and they won't track any of the kind of general thresholds and details for you. You need to still know when to put those settings in for which states to collect it and how much. And you will be paid that additional sales tax into your normal payout, and you will need to work that out to pay that back to each state. So that's the kind of the next step. And again, we help with that. And then finally, selling on your own website. That is then the kind of the hardest part because you're going to have to just use some additional software you can get, or work it out manually. But you still need to do all of that. So kind of a raw website is the trickiest, but again, our systems and what we do obviously does that and makes that automated for people. But that's the kind of progression of difficulty, and I think that you see from different website to website.
Well, that's good to know that some of these major platforms have it built in. But you said that people still had to register, and I'm assuming that means for the tax exempt status. So even if those platforms are collecting sales tax for you, one of the big mistakes you see, and just want to make sure, is I should still register as tax exempt, even if these other platforms are collecting on my behalf.
Well, interestingly, in that scenario, there's a distinction to make. So tax exemption and tax compliance are actually two different things, arguably, even though
Mhm.
when you get tax exempt, it can also make you tax compliant at the same time. You can be tax compliant without needing to be tax exempt. So in those scenarios, they're actually saying we want you to be tax compliant. So it's not about whether you need to pay sales tax or not. With us, like as a state, we're saying we just want to know the sales that you are making,
Okay.
and to be transparent about it and see that it's matching with our platforms. Now, one really interesting thing that's worth bringing up, and if there's one thing that someone can take from this podcast, lean in now and listen to this carefully, because there's so many people who sell on Amazon and Walmart and Etsy, whatever, will make this mistake. If you sell on these big marketplace facilitators who collect and pay sales tax back for you, that I just mentioned, Amazon, Etsy, Walmart, eBay, your sales still count towards your thresholds that you cross to register to those states. And the warehouses you store your products in, be it FBA warehouses or Walmart warehouses or wherever, still counts towards the physical nexus and thresholds crossed for you to register to states. So you may not need to register initially, but because you have crossed thresholds, if you then start selling on a website under the same business or a Shopify website, all of those sales you have already made and all of those warehouses you've stored your products in are going to make all of that sales on your website liable. So as soon as you start selling on a website from day one, your first sale you could be having to collect and pay sales tax back on. So it's not like I'm starting from zero. I didn't need to do anything with my marketplace facilitators because they did it all for me. And now I start from zero on my website or Shopify, and I will track my thresholds from there. No, you have already collected a certain amount of work towards a threshold, or a certain amount of work towards your physical nexus being hit, which means when you need to register to a state because of where you physically put products, or whether you have employees in the state or wherever, that is very important. So please take that away, if anything, from what I'm saying today.
Very interesting to know, because I don't think a lot of people take that into consideration. Especially not their inventory that's sitting in a particular state. Because when you're using some of these other platforms, you might not even know where your product is sitting and what warehouse where it's at. So
Yeah,
having the
yeah,
software or a team like RGM or RJM to be there to monitor that is going to be very, very helpful, because I can see really quickly how it can get out of compliance when you're starting to sell stuff. Now, you've
yeah.
worked with over 5,000 businesses. What are some trends that you see that make e-commerce brands successful? What do they share? What do they have in common?
Oh wow, that's a really cool question. I think you always have similar traits between the CEOs who run the business, as in, be it personality traits or traits in their nature. Those are typical, sheer determined people, won't take no for an answer, will just push through and smash through every wall and learn from every mistake and keep picking yourself back up. That's probably the most common people that you meet with successful businesses. The business itself, apart from having an original product or service which, excites people or saves people time and money, I would say the most repeatable thing you see is really good marketing and
Mm,
advertisement, because that is the make or break of a business. Either it'll burn all your money, or it'll keep your business stagnant if you don't do it, or shrinking back, or it'll blow your business up. If you can get a successful streak of advertisement, let's say the example, you build a really good Google pixel on, Google advertisement, and you've done it for long enough that now it is this perfect pixel. It gets a great cost per conversion. Now you can scale, and the sky's the limit. And actually the value on that business and the sustainability of that business is built into this one tiny little pixel that knows who to target and how to do it, and knows if I put in A amount of money, I'm going to get B amount of money out every time, and I can scale A to scale B. That is the most repeatable and most common thing that you see in successful e-commerce businesses.
100% getting that. I know there's a lot of businesses who deal in referrals, and that's a hope strategy that doesn't always work. Sometimes some people have lifestyle businesses that are semi-successful, but if you really want to scale, you need to have that influx coming in, some sort of revenue stream, customer lead generation system that's built in that you can turn on and off as needed based on the flow for your company. And it takes work. It does take work to get there, but we definitely can. If there's a e-commerce company out there right now, they're finding themselves in a situation where they're super excited because they're growing. They want to find out more about becoming tax compliant, and they just listen to this episode. What can they do to get started, and what can they expect?
Come on over to RJM Tax Exemption. Come meet the team. Come meet us. We're a friendly bunch. We're not going to bite you. And book a free consultation with us. You've got nothing to lose. We're not going to hard sell you anything. We're not those type of people. And that's the bonus of working with a tax company. We're not flashy salespeople. We just do a good job, and our reviews speak for themselves. So book a free consultation and just find out, whether you need to be worried about anything or not. If you already have any liabilities or not, whether you're going to get there. And we'll tell you for free, and we'll let you know a rough idea. We can give you a rough overview and audit. Go onto our website, read a load of blogs, as I said, for free. Educate yourself. That's probably the most important thing. That's probably the best place to start.
And what's the best way for someone to schedule that consultation?
Yeah, pop onto our website. You'll see a book now button at the top. I mean, there'll be plenty of those buttons dotted around. Book now. A calendar link will come up. You can pick a specific time. You'll book in with one of us, and we can have a nice old chinwag video chat and talk through any concerns and worries that you have. It's very easy, very simple.
There it is. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. I know October 15th is right around the corner, and you're thinking for your own personal extension, it's the deadline's coming around the corner, but you don't always think about your sales tax if you're an e-commerce person, or maybe you do. Every quarter it drives you crazy and you don't know what you're doing. You need some help. So make sure you guys reach out. His website, Reuben's website, is rjmtaxexemption.com, rjmtaxexemption.com. Make sure you guys pop on over there. Learn everything you possibly can there. You don't got to be an expert in sales tax, but the more you educate yourself with that free content they have there, the better your conversation is going to be. And then when you do schedule your consultation, you have a good idea as to what questions you want to ask and how to help best clarify your situation. rjmtaxexemption.com is the website. Reuben, before we head out, any final thoughts?
Look after yourselves, guys. Get ahead of the game. Don't fall for the short-term gratification and ignorance, which leads to long-term pain and issues. Put in a bit of hard work now. Save yourself a lot of hassle in the future. Thanks so much for listening as well. Really appreciate it. I know tax isn't the sexiest topic out there, so thank you for those who survived this long. And Hernan, it's been an absolute pleasure being here with you today as well.
Appreciate it. All right, ladies and gents, I know Uncle Sam can be scary, but if you have a good team behind you, he can be pretty cool sometimes. So make sure you guys file your taxes on time. October 15th is right around the corner. And if you need help because you're in the e-commerce space and sales tax is driving you crazy, rjmtaxexemption.com. Get there, book your call today. Reuben, thank you very much for being on the program. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace. And we're out.
It's over. Go home.
Is your business in need of marketing? Try starting a podcast, but not just any podcast. Podcast like a pro. We can show you how to take your business from being invisible to becoming a brand people trust. Go to www.businessbros.biz to get started today.